Hey guys. Okay, so let's talk about how it was for my pre-approval of my surgery and what were some of the things that my bariatric office required of me before I was able to get the surgery. So throughout this video, I'll go ahead and insert a few clips that I was allowed to take, just recording myself, as I had some of my appointments with my doctor as we got ready for the surgery, and we talked about some of the restrictions that were going to happen and some of the steps I need to take before I could be approved, both through their surgery center and through my insurance, and also just some of the things to expect after the surgery and right before the surgery. So with my insurance, I do have individual health insurance, not a group plan. For the past couple years, when I've really been contemplating getting this surgery, all of the group plans that I had, unfortunately, did not cover bariatric surgery. But the individual plans that I was able to get on the healthcare marketplace did cover it. However, it only covers the surgery at 50%. So I did have to wait until I had that 50%, which was a lot. So I went ahead and went through the same bariatric center that's attached to the hospital system that I use here in North Carolina. And they were able to get me in for the first appointment within, I think a month and a half at first, because they were very busy and everybody's trying to get that surgery right now. But when I first called to schedule my first introduction appointment with the doctor and with their center and just to start the process, it was scheduled 3 months out. But luckily I asked to be put on a waiting list and I was able to get in, I think at a month and a half mark. And so at that point, after that first appointment, they led me to believe that because they are so busy, all of the appointments, which I think might have been like 10 appointments that were necessary before I can have the surgery, might take like 3 months. And I really didn't want that because I didn't want my surgery to be anywhere near the holidays. That's one of the things that I was most concerned about, is I wanted to be healed enough from the surgery and close to eating some solid foods enough that I could participate in some tiny way in the holidays. I didn't want to be on pureed foods or literally just out of surgery trying to travel for the holidays or anything like that. So I definitely was wanting to get it done this summer, and thank goodness I was able to. But for the initial appointment, we kind of just talked over what we thought the best surgery would be for me. We were taking into account the fact that I have chronic illness, I have rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, and also the fact that I have high blood pressure. I was starting to test high blood sugars and high cholesterols as well, but we weren't really sure how much that had to do with two medications that I'm on, one for high blood pressure and one for the rheumatoid arthritis that can also make your cholesterol and blood sugar test high as well. But because we had those things going on, and also I wanted something that I personally felt would have a longer, more dramatic, long lasting effect on me. And I also wanted, to have, I know dumping syndrome sounds like a horrible thing to happen, but I needed that repercussion to my actions if I did break the diet that I was supposed to be on. Like I needed that negative reaction to help me to stay off of having high sugars. I don't eat a high sugar diet now because high sugars can really aggravate fibromyalgia. And if I eat even a little bit of chocolate, like half a bar of world's finest chocolate or something like that, for instance, because I recently had somebody come to my door and sell some to me and I ate half that bar and I had a major fibromyalgia flare. So I rarely eat high sugar because it makes the fibromyalgia act so bad. However, it's still, I don't want to fall into that at all, especially since I realized I was getting to the point where I could end up having high blood sugar if I didn't watch it. So I decided to go with, my doctor's office does not do the regular gastric bypass, and they also do not do the Roux-en-Y. They just do the gastric sleeve or the vertical sleeve bypass, or also called the sleeve gastric bypass. And so that's the same as the mini bypass. I think the same or very similar to the SADI, things like that. So basically they create a sleeve like they do with the VSG, the vertical sleeve, but then the bottom of that sleeve is disconnected, and you still keep that little portion of your stomach pouch. And I'll try to add a diagram somewhere up here of what it looks like, but they keep the old stomach pouch in, and it stays connected to your sphincter muscle inside your stomach that leads to your intestines, and it continues to add gastric juices and stomach acid to your intestines to help with the digestive process. But your sleeve the sleeve that they created gets reattached to a lower part of your small intestine to bypass the part where you would absorb a lot of the things that would cause a high cholesterol and high blood sugar and things like that. So you are bypassing part of the small intestine, but they're not doing the Y shape, and they're not removing the old part of the stomach. So that's the surgery that I decided I wanted to do, because I wanted the more dramatic, I know that one's going to be a little bit harder on the body, a little bit harder on the digestive tract. I'll have more limitations on what I can eat, but I actually want that. I want the highest possible ability for success and for long-term success. So that's what I chose to go for. And they thought that was a great option for me as well. And something that'll have faster weight loss as well, whatever we can do to help alleviate some of the weight of my joints for like the rheumatoid arthritis and things like that. So it was a really great first appointment, but the doctor explained a lot, gave diagrams, explained to me the limitations I'm going to have to my diet. I don't recall if I mentioned this in my video where I announced that I was going to have the surgery, but I know I have a clip that I'll insert where the doctor kind of explains this a little bit. But I was asking why we can't have coffee. Like they would prefer you to never have coffee after the surgery, but they know that's not very realistic. So most people, they're just asking that you don't have coffee for 6 months after the surgery, and no dark teas or anything like that as well. And I was asking like why that is, and they said because teas and coffees have tannins, and tannins can interfere with the absorption of iron. And after you have a surgery like this, especially the bypass, but with all of the surgeries, it's harder for you to absorb iron. So they don't want you to have something in your diet that would help make it harder for you to absorb iron. And so I'm already mildly anemic, and I don't need to make it any harder on my body to be able to absorb these things. So I did, what I ended up doing is, after I had that appointment that day, I went ahead and picked up some half calf coffee and some decaf coffee. And so I slowly went through the process of going from, I originally was drinking Starbucks twice the caffeine K-cup coffee. That was my favorite coffee. Now, I only had 1 cup of coffee a day, but I loved the amount of caffeine in that coffee, and the flavor of that coffee is absolutely amazing. So it's one of the best flavor coffees I've ever had. So I've been drinking that for many, many years. So I had to go from half the caffeine coffee to regular caffeine coffee. And then I think I did that for like 3 weeks. Like that's how long I need to do, for 3 weeks. And then after that, I switched to half the caffeine coffee, so that by the time it was time for my pre-op, I did the decaf during my pre-op. And then when it was time for surgery, obviously no more coffee since then. I should have just like cut out the coffee completely by pre-op, but I love coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I love the smell of coffee. I love the look of coffee. I'm one of those people that just loves everything about coffee. And the pre-op diet is rough. It's rough. I'm going to make a separate video on the pre-op diet, but it's rough. Hearing the amount of food you're supposed to have and actually seeing it is a whole different thing. So it was rough, and I needed the warm, wonderful richness of my coffee. So I just made sure I had my coffee with unflavored cashew milk is what I use. I think it's Amherst cashew milk was what I was using as creamer. So it was sugar-free, unflavored cashew milk. And you're allowed to have almond milk during the pre-op diet. So if you don't drink milk. So that's what I was using at the time with the coffee. So it was helpful. It helped with the desperation of just having just those shakes. I also would sometimes just pour my shake into my coffee instead of even using the creamer, or not the creamer. It was cashew milk, but I would sometimes just pour like the Soylent protein shakes in there, which is the protein shakes I chose to use. The Soylent Complete, because that one has less calories and more protein. I would just put that in the coffee, and it's actually really good that way. So anyway, after I had that first appointment and we talked about some of the limitations, things that I won't be able to eat in the future, what it'll be like, after the surgery, I went to their front office to be able to go schedule all of my future appointments from then on. And I think it was just the grace of God and luck, or someone had just canceled all their appointments and must have decided to back out of the process. But I was able to get almost all but maybe 3 of my appointments done that week. So they got me in every single day that week, and then like the next week and a couple days next week. And I was able to get all of my required appointments out of the way, except for my pre-op appointment with the surgeon. Well, not pre-op. There's a pre-op, and then there's your pre-op right before the surgery. I still hadn't had my pre-op with the surgeon, and that one, they just didn't have any openings for like another month. So what I did was, I actually, in this office that I had to go to was like 30 minutes away from me, so it wasn't that fun, and it was pretty pricey for, like, I don't drive, so I just Uber and Lyft where I need to go. So I was taking like a Lyft there to this doctor's office and back every day for like a week and a half. But I wanted to get these things out of the way because I wanted nothing to get in the way of me getting here and getting to the point of being able to have this surgery. So I went in the next day to see the nutritionist, and the day after that to have a specific type of appointment with the doctor where we just talked about like my medical history, my allergies, issues I've had with my stomach and intestines in the past, my chronic health issues. They made sure I had all of the waivers that I needed from my specialist, my rheumatologist, and my internist for my other, health issues. My doctor's office actually requires you to get a notarized letter from whoever is going to be your support person during the time of the surgery. This doctor's office has had some really weird situations where people have been planning on having the surgery and like not even told somebody like their spouse that they live with that they're going to have the surgery. So when they have some kind of complication and their spouse has to take them to the emergency room after the surgery and they don't even know that that person has just had the surgery, it's been very problematic, so I guess something like that has happened enough times and that it was bad enough that I literally had to get my friend who was going to be driving me to the hospital. My sister is coming in town for the surgery, but she's in another state and it has to be notarized here in North Carolina. So my friend, who's also going to be a support person for, right before the surgery and then after the surgery, after my sister leaves, I actually had to have her sign a notarize and have a letter notarized, saying that she's going to be the support person who is going to support me at least for, I think they said like 3 weeks after the surgery. So that was quite the interesting thing to have to get done, but I can understand why they would need something like that. But after that, I had, like I said, I had my second appointment with the doctor to go over my health history and have them having contact with my doctors and everything like that. And then I met with a nutritionist. The next day I met with the bariatric therapist or psychologist. And then I met with, and you have to see the nutritionist twice, because the first nutritionist looks at, talks to you about like changes you need to make to your diet and things like that to show that you are ready for the surgery. And then your second appointment is for you to talk with them and tell them how you made these changes. I also had to show, like my place was pretty strict. I had to show a lot of proof of the changes that I was making and things like that. But luckily for me, since I don't have a history of sleep apnea, and because my BMI was literally 1 point below where it would have to be required to have a sleep study test, I did not have to have the sleep study test because I don't have that history and because my BMI was 1 point below where you're required to have it. And that, I think it was just a good day at weigh-in where it was 1 point below, because a lot of times I would weigh more than I do on that day. So that was great, one less thing I had to do. But I also had to come in for chest x-rays to make sure that my lungs were healthy. I had to do an EKG. I had to do a lot of blood work, checking everything basically. And then, like I said before, I had to get like actual letters from my doctor. At least they had forms for them to fill out that they had to fax into even though this was all part of the same hospital system, I still had to get the letters from my two specialists saying that they felt that I was healthy enough to have the surgery. And of course, that was really helpful. I actually went to go see my rheumatologist in person for one of our regular follow-up visits, and she was very, excited for me to have this surgery. But she let me know that I think one of the worst news I heard for getting ready for the surgery is that I had to stop Rinvoq, which has been a life-changing medication for me. I had to stop it for 3 weeks for this surgery because it stops your ability to fight infection. So I had to actually stop this medication 1 week before, and then for 2 weeks after. And so for me, I can feel the difference in my body when I miss 1 or 2 doses of Rinvoq. Like the inflammation already starts coming like crazy, and I just start feeling bad, and like it all comes back very quickly. So it's just a daily pill, so it did not take long for it to get out of my system and for me to start feeling it. So that's really gonna suck, and I was really, really regretting that. I've been off of it, for a long period of time before, when I lost got laid off of a previous job and lost my health insurance. I was off of it for a few months, and it was horrible. So I just didn't want to go back to that person again. But she was telling me this is the better option, because if you were to keep taking it and you were to get an infection, you would be off this medication for 3 to 6 months. That would be so much worse. So 3 weeks compared to 3 to 6 months, because I got an infection, it's worth the trade-off. So that was a hard part. So she did have to write and tell my doctor, my surgeon, that I have to be off of it, so they know that, and everybody's going to be making sure that everything is going correctly with that. So I'm trying to think if there's something else. So it was the 2 nutritionist appointment. It was the appointment with the doctor. It was the pre-op with the surgeon, the appointment with the psychologist, and then of course I had to see both of my primary and my specialist before the surgery as well. I think, and then of course the tests that I had to have done. Some of those were separate appointments. The X-ray and the EKG and all the blood work that I had to do as well. So yeah, I was able to get all that done in a week and a half, except for, like I said, the pre-op appointment, which was a month later with the surgeon. That was an extremely quick appointment. I didn't really have many questions for him because I've been researching this for so long, and I think the only question I had was what's the difference between the sleeve gastric bypass and the mini bypass, because that was something I had heard more frequently, and he just let me know it's the same thing. They're just have different names. So yeah, I went through all of those steps, and then once I had my pre-op appointment and got the clearance from the second appointment and the clearance from the nutritionist, I was lucky enough to get the clearance from the therapist or psychologist right away. They thought I was a candidate immediately, so I didn't have to see them multiple times or anything like that. Because I was very aware of my eating issues and what causes me to get there, and I was in the process of working on those things. So once I was able to get all that done and all that, then the office was able to submit the final. So I think after my very first appointment, they submitted an initial pre-approval to my health insurance to see, make sure that they do cover bariatric surgery and about how much would be my responsibility and things like that. So, and also what their requirements are for me as a patient to do before the surgery. And that got a little scary for a minute there too, because there was a little misunderstanding. There was something that said that I had to see the bariatric specialist for 12 months before I could have the surgery. And so I got really scared thinking I was gonna have to wait a year, and that was totally deflating me, because they sent me something in my chart saying that. But when I called to get some clarification, they were just no, you had to have just been seeing a doctor where you guys were discussing your weight and like weight management for 12 months, and they didn't have to be 12 consecutive months. So I had been talking with my primary care about this for over 12 months, so everything was fine in that case. So but yeah, that's my insurance required that I have discussed weight with my doctor for at least 12 months, just 12 months in general, like showing it in my notes and stuff like that. And that I had tried for a period of time. I forget how, I think it was like a year or two or something like that, different diets, which I tried many diets, basically every diet over the many years. So I was able to just tell them everything that I've done and, you know, how those things kind of work with me. I've tried, you know, medications like the phentermine and all the other things that come with those weight loss clinics that you can go to and stuff like that. So yeah, so they let me know everything that was required. So after I got all of my appointments done, that's when they submitted the final pre-approval request from the insurance. And after all of those appointments, which were specialist visits and all the copays that I had to pay for those, as well as the copays for all of the imaging and the lab work that I had to do, they were able to tell me what the final amount due that I had to pay, which I think ended up being like $7,000 or something like that for the surgery. But it was higher before, but because I was paying all of these like co-pays and appointments and, you know, whatever else you're doing with your insurance, it was, my max out of pocket was going down a little bit. So it was a little bit more and more was getting covered at that point. But yeah, from that point, when I got that like approval from the insurance, they literally called me and were like, all right, let's schedule your surgery. We can do it in 3 weeks, you know, like start your pre-op diet in 1 week and then we'll be ready for the surgery. But I wasn't ready for it quite then. I needed to give my sister time to buy her plane ticket to be able to fly to be with me during that time. And I also needed to give my friend who was being my support person time to rearrange like her schedule so that she could be there to take us there and back and whatnot. So, and I knew that she also had family coming into town soon. So I didn't want it to interfere with anything like that. And also her and her spouse were going to be watching my dog while I was there for surgery. So, you know, you're there for surgery overnight. So I was making arrangements for them to watch my dog for 2 days because I knew that it was a possibility I could possibly not get discharged until that evening or not even till the day after, you know, if I wasn't like able to keep down all of my liquids and whatnot. So, so I need to make all those arrangements. So I asked them to schedule it a month from the day that they approved me. So, so my surgery is scheduled for August 9th, 2023. And I am super excited and very ready. And I'm trying to think of anything else that I wanted to add and mention to this. I think that's it. If you guys have any questions about like what it's like going through this process as somebody with chronic health issues and like that's the other thing I could add too about like medications. So for this surgery, you cannot be on any kind of steroid for 3 months before the surgery. So luckily for me, the last time I had to take prednisone was like back in January or February. So if I had recently had to take it, the surgery couldn't be for 3 months from now. I am seeing a spinal specialist who wants to do some facet block injections on my upper thoracic spine. However, I had to cancel those appointments because those injections have some steroid in them and they would get in the way of me having the surgery. So I did have to postpone those until like a month after my surgery, basically, I think is what I have to wait for. So for those of you who have multiple health issues and chronic illness that also, you know, there may be some things that have to be rearranged. Like if my pain in my back was so severe that I knew that there's no way I could do the surgery without these injections, then I would have just had to reschedule my surgery for 3 months after those injections. But I knew I'd be okay to wait a little bit longer for those injections, and I didn't want to put the surgery off any longer, to be honest with you. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about like going through this process as someone with, you know, rheumatoid arthritis, someone who's autoimmune, as well as fibromyalgia and just having chronic illness, and having your multiple doctors that you need to get clearance with, like, please, you know, leave any questions that you have below. But yeah, I'm so excited to share more of this journey with you, to let you know what the surgery was like. I think my next video is probably going to be on the pre-op diet. I have, I've had to do a lot of shopping to prep for that. I was really excited for it, but now that I've like started to prep some of the things to get ready for it, because we're now getting down to the days of doing that, and I'm realizing how little I'll be ingesting, I am a little bit nervous. So I've been going through my refrigerator and giving away any extra food or anything that I can't eat during the pre-op, or I won't be able to eat most regular foods for a month or two after this surgery. So I'm just going through my cabinets and my refrigerator and just giving food away to friends, family, and neighbors, that I won't be able to have for a while, because there's no point for it to go to waste. And also, I don't want it here to tempt me during that time. And I'm fortunate that I am a single person who lives alone, and so I don't have to cook for other people, so I don't have to worry about being tempted by other people, like the food that other people need to eat and things like that. I mean, my sister's here, I'll have to deal with that, but I think she's literally coming the day before the surgery, so I don't think there's going to be much temptation, right after the surgery, because, I'll be healing. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this journey, and thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day. All right, bye.
I guess start off, what brings you in on this beautiful spring day to talk about surgery?
Yeah, I've been interested in bariatric surgery for a few years now. I just now became able to afford to do it. Have insurance that covers some portion of it.
Yeah,
and then
some
could afford
insurances
to
are
get-
like, we're just not gonna cover those.
Yeah, and every insurance I've had didn't, and so a marketplace insurance actually does. And so I wanted to start taking the steps to get there.
And just so you would be aware, both with the headaches and with the fibromyalgia and everything else, you would not be able to take NSAID class medications after bariatric surgery, like ibuprofen, naproxen, meloxicam. With a couple of exceptions, for the most part, would recommend staying off that class of medications.
Right.
So steroids, as you know, do a lot of good. They're also fantastic at mucking up bariatric surgery.
Okay.
So want to make sure that you're off all steroids for at least 3 months before your surgery.
Okay.
If something's happened, you have to go on steroids. Sometimes it is what it is, but your surgery has to get pushed back.
Okay, yeah, I haven't been on prednisone since like January.
Yeah,
something like
So
that.
that point's fine, just so you know going forward.
Okay.
If you do have steroids, let us know, and preferably let us know earlier so we can just be like, oh, we were thinking about surgery, we're just gonna have to push that back a little bit.
Okay, what does it do to surgery? Like, how does it interfere with it?
Poor healing,
Okay.
risk for incisional oozing.
Oh, okay.
It's just not worth it. And usually try to make sure people are off steroids for at least a month after surgery.
Okay.
After that, steroids can be done. As always, it's kind of a pro and con. Steroids can lead towards like ulcers and stuff, but also we don't want to not treat a rheumatoid arthritis flare.
Right.
So it's kind of a balance of, if it's not that bad, try to go without the steroids,
Right.
but obviously there's other things that take precedence.
Right, yeah.
So kind of halfway towards surgery is multiple steps, because we want you to succeed, we want you to do well. And that means making sure that you're in the best health you can be, and that you know what to do. So usually next couple things, we do a lot of things. One is might update some of your labs. It looks like you had a couple labs updated in January, and like a couple of years ago, primary care updated the whole thing, but usually want to make sure we got blood count. At minimum, metabolic panel blood count and thyroid up to date. But usually if we're already sticking you anyway, like to check to make sure there's no like iron deficiency, B12 deficiency, vitamin D deficiency. And especially because like last times you were a little bit anemic, so it'd be nice to see if it's going in the right direction. And we can check those today if you'd like.
Okay.
Other thing that I usually leave up to the surgeon is whether or not they'd want to do an endoscopy. You managed to do pretty good with scheduling. I was like, wait, you got.
I was like, let's do this if we can get it all done.
Giving you in the room because it's what meet today, dietitian tomorrow, behavioral health the day after.
Mm-hmm.
Only thing I want to check is, did you get scheduled for the nurse navigator Zoom class?
Yes.
Awesome.
It's not till June.
Gotta be one thing that got left out.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, June's like a couple weeks.
I know. I was like, I act like this far.
So I usually when I do medical visits, I do this more. Part of it's also getting some of your background, social history, weight history. So as weight something you start with your whole life, like ever since you were a wee little kid?
Yes. Not as much as I do now, but
Okay.
compared to like siblings, I was always bigger than they were.
Anything change that caused more weight gain or just creep up over time?
Yes, starting on the medications for like fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis, and having a lot less activity due to those things. I was an athlete and a dancer before that, so I probably didn't know how bad it could get for me because I was so active, but
Yeah.
once I wasn't active, it definitely piled on.
Like active duty, deployed active duty military, I think on average, like calorie consumption is like 3,000 calories a day.
Oh,
Because by
wow.
the time, you know,
Yeah.
you're marching and running and carrying a 100-pound pack and all of that, like, you need a lot of fuel for that.
Then you come back and you keep eating
But you
like
come
that.
like that, you come back and you keep eating 3,000 calories a day, and you sit on the couch and watch TV. You see a lot of weight gain. So it is kind of interesting. You see a lot of people that were deployed military come back and usually almost instantly gain weight. And a lot of times they realize and kind of adjust, but there's always this little whoop.
Yeah.
Because they're used to eating all this food, and then
Right,
suddenly it's
right.
like, you don't need that much anymore. But yeah, I think it happens a lot to kids as well. In high school, we promote all of this activity. It's like, hey, join the club, do dance, do volleyball, do all these sports, and then suddenly we just stop.
Right. Once I have a date, I'll know who's available to help most.
I think before they schedule though, they do need one of the folder you got should have had a packet for a support person.
Okay.
That form has to be notarized. So I wouldn't hold off until the very last minute.
Okay.
Because they want to have that first before they schedule your surgery. So
Okay.
we'll get an estimate of idea when it's
Okay.
coming closer. And I know it's an extra hoop to jump into, but the surgeons started doing that when they had a glorious catastrophic failure of communication. So someone's like, yeah, I'm having surgery. Yeah, I got good support. Everything's great. And we're like, cool. Like a week out, she had like a complication after surgery, and her husband came in with her. Her husband didn't even know she had bariatric surgery.
Oh.
Literally told absolutely no one. And to be fair, it's your health. You can determine who you want to tell or not, but you can't tell me,
You
come
can't
in
not
here and
tell
say-
anybody.
You can't tell somebody.
Yeah.
That somebody doesn't even have to be your spouse,
Right.
but basically, it was like an entire fiasco. So now they're like,
Wow.
nope, I need you to have a support person, and I need proof that they were aware.
Okay.
But otherwise, the only other thing we'd want to add is, especially as you prepare for surgery, is to add in some sort of resistance or strength training.
Okay. Have some resistance bands.
I was gonna say, yeah, resistance bands, weights, Pilates, something that helps build and retain muscle mass. It's important for health anyway. Recommendations are trying to get in at least 2, if not 3 days a week of adding in some sort of resistance training. But it's a super important after bariatric surgery, because with rapid weight loss, if you don't take steps to prevent it, like 10% or sometimes even more of the weight you lose can be your lean muscle mass.
Okay.
So then the scale looks good, but you feel like a wimpy dried up noodle because you lost all your muscle.
Right.
So the way you prevent that is by making sure you have good protein intake, because that's what muscles are built out of, so your body doesn't start strip mining your muscles for protein resources. And by using those muscles to be like, look, see, these are good.
Right.
Let's keep them. But resistance bands are a good way to go.
Okay.
And I'll review something that's just good initially to be aware of, and try to see if there's other things you can do to notice, like, hey, I'm looking for a snack. Am I hungry or am I bored? You know what? I'm not actually hungry or bored. Is there something else that can be done to try to provide that interest in stimulation? Because that's one thing that surgery is not going to fix.
Right.
So I like setting people up for success, make sure there's no weight regain, because surgery will help with hunger, satiety, portion control, does not change snacking behavior.
Right.
If it's not driven out of hunger. So if you're eating because you're stressed or eating because you're bored, that'll still be an issue 10 years from now.
Right.
So it's good to be aware of it and try to take steps. As I said, step 1 is being aware of it, and it's mostly actively choosing something else to take its place. Because if you just say, hey, I'm really, really bored, I want a snack, and you're like, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, okay, but you're still bored. What about tomorrow? What about an hour later? What about tomorrow? So someone's trying to figure out, hey, what else can I do? Any coffee or tea?
Yes, coffee. 1 coffee every day. I know, I can't do the coffee after surgery.
So sometimes that also helps to taper off. Cutting coffee cold turkey can sometimes make people tired and crabby and headaches. So I usually start tapering off. You can switch to like half calf every other day and just kind of taper off. So you don't.
After surgery, is it no decaf coffee as well?
Right after surgery, no. And there's several reasons for that, not just because we're jerks. One, coffee tends to be an acidic beverage that can worsen heartburn and reflux. Two, dark in color beverages like black tea, coffee are high in tannins. Tannins can be a gastroirritant in some people and can also partially block iron absorption. Three, coffee, unless it's decaffeinated, has caffeine in it, which can worsen reflux by loosening the diaphragmatic closure of the stomach, and also makes you pee more, and it's more likely to make you dehydrated, which in general is not a concern, but after bariatric, right after surgery, like the first month, is a risk. People do have risk for dehydration.
Okay.
Because they're like, my stomach's tiny and tight and swollen, and I'm feeling nauseated, and I don't want to drink enough.
Right.
And you don't want to make that harder.
Right.
That being said, realistically, as a real person, so safest medical plan after surgery is just don't drink coffee. As a real person, I will admit that probably like 90% of people go back to drinking coffee after surgery. Wait at least 6 months out and also see how your body responds.
Right.
If you're like, wow, I started back drinking coffee and now my stomach hurts and I get acid reflux, don't do it.
Right.
And the reason I ask is, obviously you don't want to be pregnant before bariatric surgery. Ideally, you would want to make sure there's no pregnancy for at least 18 months, ideally 2 years after surgery.
Right.
Because it's super high risk pregnancy, risk for birth defects, it's hard on mom, hard on baby.
Right.
So, and be advised that oral birth control pills are not super effective after a bypass surgery.
Okay.
You know, they're like, oh, this is 98, 99% effective. I'm making this number up, but I would say it's about 60% effective after bariatric surgery. Would not rely upon it.
Okay. Okay.
But obviously stuff like the depot shots, IUD, anything like that's fine.
Okay.